Welcome back to the UiPath Production Ready Essentials training. Today, we'll use the workflow that we created in the previous tutorial to illustrate the usage of the assets functionality. The message to be typed by the robot does not differ from one job execution to another, so it doesn't make much sense to add it as an input parameter. However, it is recommended to make sure that our message is easily editable. To achieve that, we'll store the message as an asset. Once we open the Assets tab, we can simply click the plus button to create a new one. Let's type a descriptive name, such as Notepad Message. The drop-down menu next to this field enables us to select the type of data that we intend to store. Let's have a quick look at all the available options. We can store text, Boolean values, integers, or credentials. The default option suits our case, as we want to store the Notepad message, so we can move on. Next, we can add a value, which is the message itself. And then we click Create. OK. Next, we'll update our project in UiPath Studio. To retrieve the value of an asset from Orchestrator, we can use the getAsset activity. We can indicate the asset to be retrieved in the Input section in the Properties panel. Let's copy its name from Orchestrator and paste it in the Asset Name field. Next, we'll create a new variable to store the value of our asset. The last modification required in the workflow consists of adding the variable in the TypeInto activity. Let's run the workflow locally to make sure that it works. Alright, it worked. We can close the Notepad file for now. Next, let's see how we can have each robot display a different message. We'll create a new asset. You might have noticed that there are two tabs in this window, Single Value and Value per Robot. Let's select Value per Robot this time. Once again, we need a name, such as Value per Robot. Now we don't need to change the type, so let's start assigning the values. The section below usually displays all the robots that belong to this specific organization unit or tenant. We'll select all the robots and proceed by setting their individual value. For Robot 1, we'll write Hello, Robot 1. We'll click Add and move on. Now this value is editable, so we can come back and modify it whenever the need arises. We'll add the second robot, which will type the Hello Robot 2 message. Now, we'll click Create to save the asset. Let's update the workflow by including this new asset. Firstly, we need to copy its name. We'll return to our project in Studio, and we can replace the previous asset with the new one by pasting it in the Asset Name field. Now let's publish the project again to make sure that the updated version is sent to Orchestrator. We can see the name of the package as well as the latest version. Let's click OK. Before we start a new job in Orchestrator, we need to upgrade our process. Otherwise, the two robots still execute the previous version. So we'll go back to the Processes page, select View Process, and upgrade to the version that was published a few seconds ago. Moving on, we'll go to the Jobs page to trigger the execution of the current version. And we'll enable both robots and click Start. The two jobs are now running. And here's the Notepad window as well. Let's close this file and let's also check Robot 1. The text that we assigned it was successfully written in Notepad. Alright, let's move on. The next topic that we'll address today is the credential asset type, which enables our robot to log into this application. Now we'll go ahead and create a new asset called UI Demo Credentials. This time we need to pick a different type, namely credential. Next, we need to provide the username, which is admin, and the password. Credential assets enable us to store passwords securely. When we try to edit this asset, we can notice that the password is not displayed anymore. If we edit the username, we must update the password as well. Now that we've created the asset, we need a workflow. So let's go back to Studio. We'll add a new project. So let's start a sequence called UI Demo Login. Now we won't be able to use the getAsset activity anymore because it does not work with credential assets. Instead, we need the getCredential activity. Next, we'll copy and paste the name of the asset as we did before. To save the output, we'll create two variables, one called password and the other username. Let's have a look at the variables panel. The password is a secure string, but the username is stored in a string variable. The values of secure string variables are encrypted automatically, as opposed to plain strings, which are always visible. We'll add a type into activity to enter the username and enable the Simulate Type option. The activity that we need to fill in the password field is Type Secure Text. The input is the password secure string variable. Once again, we'll select the Simulate Type checkbox. To complete the process, the robot must also click the Login button, so let's add the final activity in our workflow. Let's see how this works. Everything went fine. We've reached the end of our demo on Orchestrator Assets. Today, we've learned how to create assets in Orchestrator and incorporate them into our projects in UiPath Studio. Thank you for watching.